When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Kicking It Back with Matt. Tonight we're kicking it with my boy Ish. Ish, how you doing, man?
Doing all right, enjoying the summer. What about you guys? How'd you guys enjoy your 4th?
Hauling bamboo in the backyard, man.
You're telling me on the Jersey Shore that's what they had you doing?
That's what the boss had me doing. 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
But by the way, you could have had a panda back there.
I looked into it, dude. They're illegal to own as pets here. I wanted to have like 3 or 4 of them. I'd keep all the bamboo. I'd have everybody over for the 4th of July barbecue party, and everybody be watching all these pandas moving around in the backyard. How cool would that have been?
Not only that, just you wouldn't have to move anything. They would eat all the bamboo.
Oh, I know, dude. There's still cut bamboo back there that's still got to get out of here, and there's probably another, I don't know, 200, 300 square feet of roots to dig up.
Of all the things that I would think you'd have to worry about in New Jersey, bamboo probably ain't on the top 20 list there.
No. But anyways, this is a soccer show. This is footy, man. So, we opened up the show last week with the untimeful, unnecessary, awful, horrific story of Diogo Jota. News came to light in a couple of days after that. So, we reported last week, number 20 is retired forever at LFC in his memory. A couple of days later, the true class that Liverpool as a football club is, they're honoring the last 2 years of his contract at $140,000 per week.
That's pretty solid.
So you're looking at $14.5 million. Now, don't get me wrong. The guy's already made, I think when I was checking up on it today, I think he's already made like $68 million. But who knows what he's done with that $68 million, right? He's got a wife that he just married, 3 little kids. And on top of Liverpool honoring his contract for the next 2 years, they're also going to assist in paying for his kids' education.
Which, once again, it's a class move. I would be more worried about his brother. His brother, who wasn't as successful on the pitch, played in the Portuguese league. I believe he was younger, from what I gather.
He was 3 years younger.
Yeah, and so the brother doesn't have all this financial backing, and so I'm not sure what his family situation was, but imagine being the wife who just married him 3 days ahead of time, or his parents losing 2 kids at once.
They're only 2 kids.
Yeah, that's mortifying. It's beyond the pale. And once again, what's scary is that this happens to people all the time. The fact that a guy happens to be very good at a skill that frankly doesn't change the world in any meaningful way. We care because we've heard of him.
But I'll tell you this. I'm not going to say that the world cares, but you're a tennis guy.
Yeah.
Did you see what Wimbledon did to honor him?
Yes. It was especially in England. But all I'm saying is sports in general is not as important as we make it out to be. Acting, all kinds of entertainment, they just aren't. Even politics, most of those people we should be celebrating when they're gone. But the truth being told is that this does happen a lot, and it's good that we actually can have this sympathy for somebody outside of our own circles. Because the truth being told is we won't remember this 10 years from now. We might think of it a little bit here and there, but overall, what's good is that you actually kind of put yourself out of your own circle of people that matter to you and say, oh, it's kind of sad to hear this happen to somebody, because it happens every day all over the world. We just never hear about it.
Very true. Last week it was kind of solemn for us on the show. We were still taking it in because Wilson and Henry, my two guests last week, we all woke up to the news. Henry's a Liverpool fan. Wilson's a Barcelona fan. And we were just all time kind of taking it in. And then I made the push to, all right, what are they doing to replace him? But now I go back, and he was buried Saturday. A majority of the team was in Portugal Saturday. They only postponed the start of training one day from Monday to Tuesday. They're playing a tune-up match this weekend. Is that a little bit too much? Like, do we need to give these guys a couple more days?
Honestly, I'll tell you this. Sometimes it's best to kind of get back into your rhythm. Because, well, first of all, here's the other thing, is that we don't think of training an day or here or there probably isn't going to change the world. But I will say this. An extra day, especially early in the season, all those weird little hamstring injuries, some of them do not keep very well during the off season. Some of them have a pretty good time. And to be brutally honest, they're lucky that they didn't play in this Club World Cup, because that's 4 or 5 weeks off that they wouldn't have had otherwise. Looking back on it, probably would have been better had they played, because someone would still be alive. But I think you get what I'm saying.
And what's crazy is, and we didn't find this out until later after the show last week. Do you know why he was driving?
Why?
He was grounded by the doctors because he was recovering from a partial lung collapse, and he couldn't be in a plane with the cabin pressure. So him and his brother were driving to catch a ferry in Portugal to go across the channel to get to England, and then drive up to Liverpool to report for training on Monday.
Okay, that's brutal irony. That's in order to save his life, he had to do a bunch of things that ended up turning out poorly. Once again, bad luck is just bad luck. And once again, driving is the most dangerous form of travel, period. There's no one can ever deny it. And it's never going to be planes. Trains used to be really bad, but they're not as much anymore. Driving is by far and away the most dangerous form of travel. And we are learning that more and more and more every day. So and not to mention, I don't know if you've ever been to Spain or Portugal. A lot of those places, they're one-lane roads. And, people don't exactly, I think people are kind of liberal with the way they drive in most other countries. Trust me, go to a third world country, there's no such thing as lines. They just, wherever you can go, you go. And especially when you have fast cars on narrow roads, especially on cliffs that are right on the seasides, those places. I get scared being a passenger in buses. Those things are absolutely frightening. And so, I'm surprised that with the way the roads are and the speeds people travel, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more.
I know, and I said last week, I'm like, I get it. The guy's got a lot of money, right? He's got a great lifestyle. Who doesn't want to get behind the wheel of a Lambo? But when I'm having that type of career and I'm making that type of money and I'm in the middle of my prime as a footy player, get behind the wheel of a minivan.
No, a Volvo. Stick with the Volvo. A
Volvo or Subaru.
Yeah, those things they may not look good, but they will keep you alive. Actually, even a Mercedes actually, I think that they don't bring it up because it's very expensive. But a Mercedes is a great track record for safety. But you should be, and first of all, a large vehicle at all times. You should give yourself as much room because your body is how you make a living. You're not, no one's putting you forth for anything else. You're making millions because you can run and jump and with your skills. So you want to keep that body as protected as humanly possible. And a Lamborghini,
he could afford a tank. Drive a goddamn tank up to the ferry.
But here's the thing: is when you're 28 and you have all the money in the world, that's not. We're in our 40s. We can say that. When we were 28, the ones that always drive me nuts though are guys who do motorcycles and get these really fast motorcycles. I'm like, you got no protection. Once, not from you, from somebody else. You get nudged. You're not. There's nothing you can do about it. And by the way, if something happened like that to me, I would make sure I didn't survive because it's not as bad as it is to die in something like that. If you survive after an accident like that, some of that stuff is absolutely brutal. I mean, you don't want to end up in God knows what in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. There was a professional basketball player, Drazen Petrovic. He took his Porsche out for driving the Autobahn, and no one ever saw him again because he won't be the first, he won't be the last. And once again, we were all like this. We all said, hey, if we had these resources, we have no idea what we would behave like, and we just can't say. And at the same time, as a team person, I would literally tell all my team, everyone who was on my contract, I'm like, listen, stay away from motorcycles, stay away from sports cars. And, there's that great saying that I'm sure you've heard it before. If it flies, drives, floats, or fucks, don't buy it, lease it.
I know Lamborghinis. They're built like a paper airplane, my friend. Like
all of them, a Ferrari, a Lotus, the Porsches. All of them aren't meant. They're meant to look good. They have an engine and they have fiberglass, just a little thin rail of fiberglass. And once again, God bless that guy wherever he is. I hope to God that his family can make a semblance of this because you don't say, oh, you can move on. You don't move on from something like this. It's garbage.
And you made a great point when we started the show about the brother, and shame on me. I should have looked in to see what the Portuguese club but they're a seaside, D-side club in Portugal. They probably don't have the resources, nor was his contract anywhere near. I would hope that the widow will probably donate some of this to him. I'm pretty sure that he was single, didn't have any children. But, Jota's youngest child is like a year old.
Yeah. I mean,
she's never going to know her father.
And once again, this happens everywhere in the world. I mean, think about it. I mean, it's an odd comparison because it's not the same, but imagine how many 22-year-olds go off to war, had just gotten married, their wife got pregnant, and there are kids of war that will never, ever, when I say never see them. And what do you get from that? First of all, the U.S. government doesn't give you, U.S. or any government, forget about it, around the world, they don't give you a ton of money when someone is deceased. They give you a folded up American flag, and they say, give you some recompensation, but it's nothing remotely what you need. And that trauma, and I'm talking about, there are generations of kids that this happened to. I mean, the kids from Vietnam, the kids from Korea, kids from World War I, World War II. And there are plenty of other conflicts that, Pat Tillman, the player from Arizona, and he got killed in friendly fire, which is probably even more painful to hear about because it's like, okay, like he didn't have to die, he just did. But so when you put all that stuff together, it's, when it comes to children, and nobody did anything to deserve this. He didn't do anything to deserve this. I mean, granted, he got no fast car, and he probably was riskier than he needed to be. But overall, no one deserves this. But they are, that choice. These kids are going to be different for the rest of their lives. They're never going to be the same. And the most interesting part is, and this is kind of an unknown, is simple, is that, well, whomever the mom finds next, that'll determine how the kids get grown up, because they're not going to get raised by the father.
Yeah, I think the oldest one is like only 6 years old, but you just used the key word, choice. It's the choices that, when all these unfortunate things happen, it's the choices, it's the decisions that are made. That, you brought up Tillman. He made the choice to go and become a U.S. Army Ranger, right? Jota made the choice to say, hey, I'm this pretty popular, pretty known footy baller. I'm going to get the Lambo today. You know what I mean? So it's just heartbreaking. It's saddening. It's a week later. I'm still dealing with it, dude. Like, I watched a lot of the videos that were posted from the funeral. I'm still watching all the videos of everything at Anfield. I love that the dude Seamus from Everton, crosstown rival of Liverpool, he showed up at 11 o'clock last Friday night. And this Liverpool bloke went up to him and said, hey, Seamus Coleman, what are you doing here at 11 o'clock? And he was like, I'm here to pay my respects. And I didn't want to take away from what's going on here and come during the day when all the video cameras and all the paparazzi and the press and all that stuff is here. And that just goes to show you, like, how connected the footy world is. We touched upon it a little bit last week, but it's amazing the amount of people across the world that are related to soccer that have reached out, condolence, prayers, words being said. I thought it was awesome that Ronaldo said, hey, I didn't show up to the funeral because it would have taken away from the funeral. Class act by him after class words. But,
I call it the circle, where there's the Liverpool circle, then there's the EPL circle that comes around that. It's like it's a weird form of a Venn diagram. There's the inner team, and then there's the EPL. The EPL, naturally, every team has, you will play him twice a year, somebody Then the grander, worldwide football, football fraternity, and then you have the athlete fraternity, all of which, one's bigger than the other, but they all kind of look at each other in a different way. Because remember, we're civilians. We don't know what that entails. It doesn't, we can never figure it out. The way they live, the way their day goes about, only they know it amongst each other. They know going into a hostile place, and you guys are, and you do, to some degree, you realize that there's always a chance you're going to play with this person someday. So you try not to be any more hostile than you need to be. But
yeah, and I want to shift off this in a second. But the one other fascinating thing about this dude, which I never even knew, and then speaking of, did you see all the celebrations from the Gold Cup and the Club World Cup in the days following his death? And whenever these guys were scoring goals, they were doing the Jota clap, and then they were doing the Jota sit and play. This dude was once ranked number 1 in the world in video gaming for the FIFA game.
Really?
Number 1 in the world. And there's a huge petition going around right now to make this dude the cover boy of FIFA 26. So, like, when you saw the Mexican guy on Sunday night in the Gold Cup final, when he scored and he ran and he sat down in the corner, folded his knees and put his hands out, and then the teammate came out and dropped the number 20 with Dio Jota on it. That's the symbol for his 1 goal celebration of him sitting there video gaming. It was his other major passion.
Once again, he was going to go pro in that when he was done here, because now there are leagues for stuff like that.
I know.
And FIFA is really, really popular. And can you just imagine?
It's the number 1 sport in the world, and he was ranked as the number 1 player in it. How insane is that?
But I'm just saying, can you imagine if he said, "I'm going to start a team"? You know, he wouldn't have a tough time finding a sponsor, and about 1,000 people would sign up, but to audition for him to say, "We want to be on this team," because now esports, there are colleges that give scholarships to this crap, and I kind of go like this. I go, I guess there's a market out there for it. Far be it for me. I'm a little bit too old for this, but I mean, I'm impressed that people are this good at it, and you could sit at home and make hundreds of $1,000s a year playing video games. Like that used to be, this was something your parents used to tell you. You're wasting your time. You're a loser. Stop doing it. Now you can actually can you imagine if your parents tell you, I don't see you playing. I don't know what you're doing out here. You're wasting your time with that girl. Okay, go and start playing again. And I tell you, right now, with the way the world is going, there's going to be a population shortage soon enough. There's because first of all, everyone's scared to go out and meet a girl because of the Me Too movement. Then number 2, so you don't even talk to them anymore. You go, he gave me a look, makes me scared. Okay, then you got guys playing video games 24/7. Okay, and getting paid to do so. I swear to God, the way you're going to find anybody is a sperm bank these days. Because I think we've given up on regular human contact.
So with that being said, let's transition off of the sadness. Messi. He's breaking MLS records left and right. He's out of contract at the end of the year. What's he doing?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It's all a matter of how much. And even for a guy with his beyond considerable wealth, it's always a matter of how much. Because the only other place he'll go is Saudi. He's not going back to any really competitive league. MLS for him is like playing with a JV squad. Let's be brutally honest here. For him, he's not interested in an MLS title. If he got an MLS title, it would be in the cellar somewhere with all the other crap he forgot about. However, once again, the question is does he have a piece of the team? Did his deal with Inter Miami, just like with Beckham when he went to Los Angeles, does he have a piece of the team? If he does, then he's more likely to stay.
Miami's opening up a new stadium next season.
Yeah.
The only reason why people go to Inter Miami games is because of Messi. They can't afford to let him leave. So whether they up the MLS Apple TV package, give him, 30% ownership in the team, or just promise him that he'll get his own team like Beckham was promised, or, I shouldn't even say promised, contractually agreed to, right?
But did he ever get one?
Beckham owns Inter Miami.
He owns Inter Miami, so that means that Messi can't.
But that's what I'm saying is, do they give him MLS give him that same deal when we expand? Isn't the Miami market the crisp top of the line market that you would want to be in for footy?
For footy, when it's the most Latino market in the entire country, not to mention a lot of other immigrants, Europeans, who not, best Spanish-speaking market out there.
And it's a huge tourist destination.
Yeah, that's hard to replicate. I mean, that's the problem. What are you going to give Messi? You're going to give him Nashville? You think he's really going to beat down the door to get there? First of all, Beckham doesn't mind having Miami. He has a home there. He can live there. He can overlook the team as much as he wants. Or even if he was out in Los Angeles or even New York. All the major prime markets are gone now. What do you give? What do you give to Lionel Messi? I guarantee you, he doesn't want San Antonio. I'm fairly certain that's not his thing. I don't think he wants Omaha. I don't think he wants any of St. Louis or any other. Yes, LA could be definitely one of the premier Spanish markets. I mean, I think there's plenty of them.
But they've got 2 clubs there already. New York got 2 clubs.
But I was looking at the comments. But I'm saying that might not be what entices him. His only thing is family, and number 2 is this. First of all, I'm not sure what the Saudis get out of this. Okay, you get a little bit of publicity. Even Ronaldo was publicity, but have you ever seen a game with him in Saudi? I don't think anyone has. No matter how interested you are, there are odd times that nobody really sees. You just know he plays there. And by the way, one of his clubs was not in the Club World Cup, so they weren't even in the top 2 in that league. So, once again, what would the Saudi club get for the $120 or $150 million per year contract? What are you getting? I'm not sure what's there to be had. Because remember, even Messi, because I live in Atlanta, so we get a lot of Atlanta play. He plays up in Atlanta. He didn't, he's been injured enough where half the games he's just not there, and everyone bought tickets. Okay, you could have filleted and fast food to the rest of the team. Nobody cared.
But I would say this: money talks, and the Saudis can just roll out drums of it, pallets of it, Brinks trucks of it. They can give him whatever he wants. Now, at 37 years old, are you uprooting your family, your young kids? Is he going to want to go there for 7 to 8 months and not see his kids? That's a long commute from Miami to Saudi.
7, 8 months, you can bring your kids with you. It's not that you can't.
They got school. They're young.
I mean, okay, his resources are different than everyone else's. He could get all their teachers and be like, listen, I'll pay you each $1 million. Come on over and teach them for 7 or 8 months. You can pull that off.
You know what? Like, I'm laughing, but he totally could do it.
No, but so, I mean, I don't think that's the grand thing here. I think it's the idea of, okay, I'm making an unusual amount of money. And in the comments, is right. USA and Saudi football is really kind of an afterthought. What I'm curious about is even if you get Messi at this point has gotten away. He's 3 years removed, I think, from his last PSG, like major UEFA Champions League game, right? It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
He's no, and they won the last World Cup. And I don't even know why he's playing this time around. For him, it really kind of meaningless. He won the last one. Like, go out on top.
He's playing.
But here's the thing. Part of me is always like, I don't see why. You're 37, and there is a point after which, and don't get me wrong, Ronaldo will play too, because for what he does, he's there to score goals, do nothing else, get in front of the goal, and when you need him, you get there. What I'm just kind of thinking of is for $150 million for 6 or 7 months of work, I don't care how rich you are, you'll go. Because remember, it's not just that, and I think we kind of forget this thing. Most of us don't retire at 37 years of age. What do you do afterwards? I mean, we all think, hey, I would just sit around and there'd be all these girls and, I get to do whatever I want. No. You're a dad just like everybody else. You drive your kids to school, you pick them up, you do regular things, you go hang out, you play golf. Granted, he has more means than the rest of us do, but you go to regular life. And I'll tell you this, you might want to hang on to that glory a little bit longer. And if someone's willing to pay you to do it, because I'll give you just an odd analogy. I went to a Def Leppard concert last Thursday, okay? It was at Mohegan Sun Arena, 15,000 people. And I kept asking myself, these guys are in their 60s. Why did they do it? Okay? It was sold out. It was the day before Independence Day. And you know what was amazing? First of all, they sounded really good. But every single person in that crowd could literally recite every single word of every one of their 15 songs. And I go like this. It's easy to figure out. Because that Rush, I don't care what else you do in life. That rush comes from nowhere else. It doesn't. It is as addictive as heroin or any other drug you're ever going to come up with. So I get
like MLS would have to fork over the MLS to him. Last week, Henry said that in every part of his deal to come to Inter Miami is every stadium that Inter Miami goes to, there has to be an Inter Miami store with all Messi merchandise in it. So you come up here to Red Bull Stadium, they section off a part of it where it's just all Messi stuff. So they're going to have to give him lifelong royalties on that. And then the Apple MLS package, they'd have to give him lifetime royalties on that. Like my point is there is no amount of money that the MLS can come up with to compete with Saudi Arabia if he's really all about the money. I don't think at this point in his career, in his life, that he is. He can stay here. He can stay in Miami. He can live off all the sponsorships that he'll continue to have. He's like the Michael Jordan of the NBA. You know what I mean? Like he's never going to lose that shine. He's never going to lose that appeal. Everybody's always going to want to be Messi.
Once again, his career, no scandals, no real problems. He kind of never had the stink that sometimes gets attached to some people. Like even Michael Jordan, if they were telling the truth about him, he did plenty of shady things, but luckily the stink never got attached to him. Roger Federer makes over $100 million now. He's the first tennis player billionaire ever. He's at 1.4 billion now. He still has as many sponsorships now as he did before. He owns part of On.
But that will be Messi.
Yeah.
So do you think any sponsor is ever dropping Messi? No.
No, but once again, it's all about how much longer do I want to keep playing, number one. Because remember, that rush, have a stadium with that many people and do all that. And the other part is going to be once again, I think that it being 2026 next year, I think he might want to keep playing for one more season just to be in shape for the World Cup. Because if he's done so if he's done, his contract is done at the end of this MLS season, he might take a partial just to keep himself going till World Cup season. Just to keep yourself going and in shape. He may take a half a year there. I could see that easily happening.
And, keep in mind, Inter Miami is in negotiations right now with Atletico. And now I'm brain freezing on his name, but this 31-year-old, that he's an Argentinian that Inter's trying to bring in.
Yeah, Djokovic is better than Nadal and Federer. I like how they threw that one in there.
But it's insane when you're talking about somebody that's just playing a sport, and it's just insane that the control that this guy has over the sport, and he can do whatever he wants, and ultimately, even at 37, he could still go wherever he wants to go. You know what I mean? Because no matter what you pay him, you're going to make the money back tenfold just on the merchandise sales.
Okay, I'll give you a great one for context. Everyone says it's stupid for them, for the Lakers to take Bronny James. Bronny James sold $50 million in jerseys. That's at least 6 or 7 times whatever the hell they're paying him. If I put it this way, I would have 15 lepers like Bronny on my team. If you sold that many in jerseys, I would have 15 complete minimum players, and all of them sold that many jerseys. I'd be a rich man enjoying life because there's $50 million in jerseys. Granted, he's never going to sell. He's sell them all once. No one is ever going to buy another one. But with somebody like Messi, you can redo your local TV contract immediately if you wanted to, if you're not part of the EPL or something. And then, I mean, think about it. This would be more, okay, this would be more for teams that are on the fringe, more so than if you're Manchester United, it doesn't change much. The team is, whomever was following it will continue to follow it into perpetuity. It's not a big thing. Man City, same thing. Barcelona, Madrid, fine.
Imagine if you went back to Barcelona.
I mean, just it would be interesting, but I don't think it moves the needle for him in a great way.
It would collapse the entire progress of that squad since he's left, because their average age is like 21, and you bring him in where they got all these young superstars. It doesn't make sense from a soccer standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. And I don't want to get so hung up on Messi because time's flying.
By the way, Rodrigo de Paul, we had a comment here. Was that the guy you're talking about from Atletico Madrid?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you for that.
So let's get into what happened yesterday.
Oh, that was fun.
Semifinal Club World Cup. And I predicted it the last time you were on the show, what PSG was going to do in the Champions League final. And I said that they were going to wipe the floor with Inter.
They did.
And yesterday could have been 10-0. If PSG capitalized on some of those chances, and if Courtois didn't have a couple of amazing saves, PSG is the creme de la creme right now. We talked about it earlier. Messi was there. Mbappe was just there. Neymar was there. You could say that those are three of the top 5 players in the past 10 years. They couldn't do squat at PSG. They couldn't win anything. And now Sunday, PSG has the chance to get a quadruple. They won their league. They won their Nations Cup. They just won the Champions League. And now if they win the Club World Cup, arguably, you could say that this would be one of the greatest seasons and maybe one of the greatest squads that we've ever seen.
Well, the season for sure, because things like the Club World Cup weren't a big deal way back when. So this is still relatively new. So as far as the season and what they've taken home, when they were 15th seeded and they beat Liverpool, it wasn't as close as people make it out to be. It was they went in there and did the job. It was, you know what I mean? Is you could see, yeah.
They I've said this a couple of times, a couple months back. When we won the first leg of that game, and I was at the Liverpool Supporters Club, we all looked at each other and we said, thank God the second leg is at Anfield. Thank God it's at Anfield. It didn't matter.
They're doing things in a completely different way, and I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of copycatting going on. They're good. I mean, because once again, this isn't slightly better than everybody else. This is domination. You don't beat up on teams like Liverpool, Madrid. I mean, and the
Arsenal, Inter
Milan, and we're talking about these are the biggest matches you're gonna have all year. Everyone's fired up for it, and you are laying waste in ways that you just don't see, because it's not just the players. The scheme is completely different. The overloading, it's never been done like this. It's so anti-traditional that it's almost as if you're playing completely different. Now there's two kinds. There's going to be two subsets here. One is going to be guys who are going to try to copycat this. They're going to look at the tape, and they're going to say, okay, we can overload like this too. We can use our guys here. Okay. Then there's going to be the other guys who go, how do we stop this? There's always, guys who are not willing to come around to necessarily a new way of doing things, not that quickly. And they're going to say, okay. And by the way, they can both be successful. There's nothing to say that they can't. But now considering the last, let's just say 3 months, Now they're going to get some tape on this PSG, not the PSG from the beginning of the year. Everything since, let's just say, January, February.
January.
Yeah, but everything since then, now they have to take it seriously. And now you really have to retool and say, okay, how do we stop this? Because now they've made it completely different.
Interestingly enough, this three-man midfield at PSG looks very familiar to Pep's three-man Barcelona squad with Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets.
You know what's funny is someone mentioned that just yesterday.
And you put the attacking, youthful, relentless options in front of them. And now I'm reading that Belly, he's because of the Club World Cup and the performance he's put on, the Ballon d'Or is basically his. They're saying now, but
who else is going to be?
This side is very similar to Pep's Barcelona sides from 10 years ago, where the three-man midfield just you can't get by them, and then when they win the ball back, they're gone in the blink of an eye. And that's what happened. Yes, think about it. It was 3-0 in the first 24 minutes. We're talking about Real Madrid. We're talking about a cup competition that's worth $100 million to the winner. And you're down 3-0 in the first 24 minutes, and it's like, what just happened? And you're not coming back. And I feel so bad for Chelsea on Sunday. Because, do you know PSG started resting players after the 58th minute?
I even said that, is that, okay, you can start resting them now. After 4-0, you're kind of like, this is not, no one's really trying here. And I think what was funny is that you saw Modric on the sideline. He's like, yeah, I don't want, if I get out of here.
Never for Real, and he goes out like a sieve.
No. But what's funny is two guys were never going to play again, and they were kind of like, can I leave my jersey here? I don't want anyone to know I'm with them here. Because like Modric was kind of like half smiling. He's like, wow, this is a way to go out. This is exactly how I pictured it. But any which way, they were completely out. They were outmatched, and once again, I felt bad for Xavi Alonso, is because he just got there, and I'm talking about weeks ago. You're getting thrown into the deep end of the pool.
But I would say this: he changed his tactics completely, 180 from the opening games in the blood pool. Why did he do that here? Like, he brought Mbappe in. He hasn't played. He puts Vinicius on the other side where he's on his weak foot. He moves Bellingham from his comfortable 10 position that he loves to the 8. And he goes from a 5-man back to a 4-man back against, right now, the hottest team in the world, coming off of a CL final and Cup glory. And you do that with $100 million on the line?
Well, here was your big problem. First of all, Mbappe was hurt for part of it, so they really didn't get to play as much together as they would have normally.
Why bring him back in for a semifinal?
No, I agree. But number two is, here was the other thing, and I noticed this from a lot of the teams. They didn't take the round robin part. They did not take it seriously. A lot of them, to them, especially some of the club players, they're like, this is our time off. This sucks. I don't want to be here. I'd rather be doing anything else in the world. Okay? You
got 4 points, and you packed it in the pool play.
They didn't want to be there. And so for the round robin, they kind of took it, they took it for granted. Then once you got into the knockout round, all of a sudden, a few of them just really decided to kick it into gear and say, okay, this is, now we have something to win here. And let's face it, there's going to be some teams, like Chelsea had a miserable season. They did not play terribly well. They didn't. I mean, what did they finish in the EPL?
4th.
Okay, for them, that is not even considered very good. It was a forgettable season at best. For them, this actually does mean something. It was, whereas Real Madrid, you know that most of their guys are getting paid such a ridiculous amount of money. Some of them don't take it as seriously. Whereas PSG, none of these guys are household names just yet. They are now, but they weren't about 6 months ago. These guys.
But tell your boss that you just lost him $100 million because you didn't feel like showing up and doing your job.
By the way, I have a guy named Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard. They don't. I mean, I could give you half. You know when you get paid $50 million and you want load management. Okay, put it this way. This happens enough in major sports. I don't even want.
I know, but this is costing your boss $100 million.
Yeah, and the sad part is this is what you get when you're paying top dollar for this. This half a dozen guys, all of whom they made it look like they'd rather be anywhere else yesterday, anywhere else but there.
And I will tell you, my ultimate satisfaction with Real going out the way they did is how much they wanted Trent Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool for this tournament, where they couldn't wait until June 30th when his contract was out. And they paid Liverpool $12 million just for him to be able to play in this tournament. And then he didn't even play yesterday because he was injured. I love it. Absolutely love it. We have a couple of minutes left. Well, so let me get your prediction for Sunday.
Sunday, I think Chelsea packs the box and prays to God it ain't humiliating. If there's any other way to put it, and if I'm Chelsea, I make it as physical as humanly possible. I would get if I'm the coach, if you come back to the bench at the end of the game and don't even at least have a yellow card, you're walking home, because I would be as physical and as nasty as you get. This is one of those. Their speed, their skill. What you got to do at this point is make it nasty, because that's your only shot.
I haven't looked at the weather for Sunday. The game's at MetLife, 3:00.
It might be raining. That's my one.
I love the fact that there was 70,000 people for Chelsea Fluminense on Tuesday, and there was 77,000 yesterday for Real PSG.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll get that same big crowd on Sunday. I look at this from a game 15 years ago and a game from 4 days ago. The 2010 World Cup final in South Africa. Netherlands versus Spain. And you just said it, and it just popped in my mind that 10 out of the 11 Netherlands players all ended that game with at least a yellow card, because they knew they couldn't stop them, right? So they had to change a tactic to just have it be a complete brawl. That was the game from 15 years ago. The game from 4 days ago, Mexico, U.S. Men's Gold Cup final. Mexico turned that into a bloodbath.
Well, first of all, what I find to be absolutely repugnant is to have these games, to have it coincide with the Club World Cup, where there are still players that you would have on both sides that would conceivably be playing in this. They can't train with you, and then they can't play with you. I think having these coinciding things is absolutely ridiculous. Because it's just painfully it's painful to see. And here's one other fear that's just coming from the Club World Cup. Some of these players, and a lot of the French team is on PSG, they will have zero downtime between now and the end of summer of next year. When I say zero, I mean zero. This is a year where I wouldn't be surprised. And just remember all these teams that got pretty far: Bayern, Borussia, Real Madrid, Chelsea. You are asking for trouble, because you have no downtime, and every single one of these guys, I'm not kidding you, especially Real and for the guys who made it far in Champions League, you are going all the way through, and you're going straight home, back to training, back to everything else. This is going to be. I could see this being one of the worst years for injuries that we'll ever see.
Oh yeah, Courtois, the goalie from Real, he already came out today and said that their opening La Liga match should be postponed because they're going to get home to Spain, today or tomorrow. These players are going to go on holiday for a couple of weeks, and then they're going to be expected to turn around and start a brand new season 2 weeks after that.
It's this scheduling is, and I mean, like I said, as bad as it was this year, I mean, the Club World Cup only has so many players in it. Next year, as soon as that season's over, you are in training for World Cup from the day you are out.
Well, keep in mind, it's expanding from 32 to 48 teams.
What the hell?
In the days, we're going from 32 to 39. They're adding on a whole extra week. The final, which is typically right around the 4th of July for us, it's July 19th.
All I'm going to say is there's going to be a catastrophic injury to one or two big name players, and they're going to have to seriously reconsider something like this because I'm sorry, you can't. I mean, or
I think it's going to be more than one or two because the club's paying their salary. The national team isn't.
Nope.
The national team's not dictating what that club player is doing. The club's dictating that. And for the club, we all know what's more important.
And once again, there's that handful of players that their countries didn't even make it into the World Cup. Those, I hate to say it, those guys might be the lucky ones. They might be able to get away from it because, I mean, I'm not sure Norway made it. I don't think Holland will be playing. I don't know if he is or isn't.
Well, we don't have final qualification until September.
And which, once again, that's another part of this. Like, this is now becoming a 12-month-a-year sport, and there needs to be some defined offseason.
And they play the longest amount of time per game.
This is going to end badly, and worst come to worst, I'll tell you what would be the worst part is if, like, when you would occasionally get one of the Brazilians, the real big name ones, and they can't play in the latter rounds of the World Cup. You're going to get some hamstring issues. You're going to get some knee problems. When that happens, then and only then will people care. Because if you're paying for the World Cup and one or two big name players don't show up for certain games, well, and if you're Messi and you're Inter Miami, I would be playing you 20 minutes a game for a while. It's not. I mean, until you get to the playoffs, I'd say you basically, unless you're really in threat of not making it, you take it easy, and then only when we really need you. And if I'm Messi, I would ask for that. I'd be like, no, I'm not, because I have, depending on what he's going to do for the rest of the year, maybe it doesn't even come to pass. But I mean, once again, if you're looking at Mbappe, luckily a lot of the good French players are still on PSG. They're all together, which is still a huge plus. I mean, just like the Germans. Did you look at Bayern and Borussia? That is your World Cup team. Half is on one and half is on the other. They never leave the Bundesliga for the most part. So they're playing together all the time. That familiarity is beyond familiarity. They are together. They start off with an advantage from day one because you're just together all the time. Same with the Spanish. They very rarely leave their league. They don't really have to go elsewhere to play. Versus if you're a Brazilian, you don't play anywhere near. You don't play anywhere near Brazil. Everyone is scattered everywhere you can find.
And most of them are in Italy.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Brazilians
it's the closest style of play.
Yeah, but the Brazilians and the Argentines get scattered everywhere. Yeah. Uruguay scattered everywhere. All the South American teams, they're very few of them play down there, and very few of them play together. So, and especially what sucks for them is their trips for those weeks where they go back for national team stuff. That has to be awful. Oh, we're playing at home. Yeah, that doesn't sound all that great to me.
Well, that Spain period of glory, which was 2008 Euros, 2010 World Cup, 2012 Euros. Every single player either wore the Barca or the Real jersey. And guess what? This same cycle where Spain's going to be favored next year, it's the same deal. And it's because of that where these homegrown talents stay home.
Well, do you have enough money at home to pay them? That becomes a big thing, right? I mean, that's why the Brits should be better than they are, but they never are. But the Brits should be good because they keep a lot of people within the EPL. A lot of them can play together if they want to. I think they scatter them pretty good, though, so it's only 2 or 3 per squad. But as far as, I mean,
England's loaded.
They are loaded.
And you know where they're loaded? Is an attack in midfield. But they keep Harry Kane up top, and they just want to keep playing the ball up over the midfield to give it to him. And it's just, I don't even get me started because that's the team I root for now.
The rest of my life, if I never see Harry Kane take a penalty kick, it'll be too soon. I've never seen anyone muff as many of those as a player of his stature before in my life. By the way,
when you and I were growing up, Netherlands was my favorite team. They had Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten. They were in every cup competition as a country. It was phenomenal. Now I root for England, and it's kind of like the same thing. Like, they just can't get the tactics and the setup right, but they got all the freaking talent in the world.
Well, I mean, once again, it always comes down to, and this is what World Cup is about. World Cup is not about, it's not necessarily about the best team. It always comes down to a little bit of luck here and there. Brazilians could have won 2 or 3 times if they didn't, where they were the best team. But remember, there's a bounce here and a bounce there. And when we're talking about, it's always one goal, especially when you get a knockout round. And you can slow things down. And once again, they're not a club team. These are guys who don't necessarily play together all the time. And you can throw a team off when everyone's scattered everywhere. You can't do that to the Germans because, well, we can work around it. We play together every day. We hang together. We have the same German Pilsner beer. So they all hang together. And so once again, they have that closeness that you can't just beat out of them, where if you are still, a national squad that gets put together every so often, that takes so much to, overcome. It's just, and that's why, that's why when Argentina, when they played their first game the last time, they lost to Saudi Arabia for a reason, because during training, they were not together yet. It took them a while to get there. Once they did, they were fine. But when you lose to Saudi Arabia, that don't happen every day.
No.
Yeah.
All right, Ish. We're out of time.
All right,
Thanks
guys.
Everybody follow us on social media, Kicking It Back with Matt on Instagram and X. Ish, I'll catch up with you in a minute.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Later, everybody.